if you're a user of drugs and you're a user of cannabis, cannabis is what many people say is a gateway drug to harder drugs. Harder drugs are things that I have experience with, and I know what hard drugs are. And hard drugs are really hard drugs for me. There's methamphetamine and there's cocaine. Those are drugs that I'm familiar with taking, and I've taken heroin and I've smoked heroin and I've smoked everything else too. Cocaine is something that I've started with. It was my gateway drug into drugs. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't cannabis. I didn't like cannabis. Cannabis was something that I didn't like. I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like the way it made me sleepy. I didn't like the way it made me droop, and I didn't like the way it made me sloop and look. I didn't like the way it just made me heavy, feel heavy. I didn't like the feeling of relaxed. It didn't give me a feeling of relaxed. I didn't like the way it made me hungry. I didn't like the hungry. It just made me uncomfortable. It was a downer, and I didn't like the downer. And it could just be my system is not suited for downers. My system likes uppers. Uppers and cocaine and methamphetamine are uppers. Heroin is something I try simply to try and keep me from losing my mind when I would do meth. Meth is something that would put me into psychosis, and psychosis is something that people who do meth are familiar with, no doubt. Psychosis is that paranoia, that delusion of someone chasing you, that delusion that you're not right, and delusion that you're not doing anything right at all. When you're the person that does meth, you're the person that can't see what's ahead of them, and you're the person that knows that meth is something that you can't do. But when meth is something that you don't like, meth is something that you try, but something you don't want to continue. The meth is something that you can keep from doing by simply just saying, I don't want to try meth anymore, isn't true. Meth is such a powerful, intoxicating drug that it tells you that you got to use. You got to get high. You're someone that needs to get high. You're someone that needs to get high. And that's the trouble with meth. Meth makes you want to get high. It makes you want to get high, and it makes you want to feel the high. It makes you want to chase the high. It makes you want to do the high. It makes you want to be the high person because you feel that excessive high. The high of meth when you shoot up is so powerful and so extreme. There's nothing in my life that compares to it. You can't get drunk enough to feel it. You can't get high enough on coke to feel it, snorting it, or smoking it, or anything like that. You have to inject the drug in order to feel the kind of thing I'm talking about. And once you inject, you are killing yourself from day one. You are killing yourself. Don't do it. It's a drug that I hate. It's a drug that I love. It's a drug that I know has a lot of intoxicating qualities for many people. It can take them to a place that they love, and take them to a place that they hate, and take them to a place where they never, ever want to return. People that do meth are people that don't want to come back from it. It's true, but they sometimes don't come back from it is what we call it. A person in psychosis goes into a place that's unimaginable and some place that they don't know even exists in the real world, but they think it exists because it's an imagined place that they feel paranoid and they feel somehow contagious to all others. There's some sort of illicit sort of existence that they shouldn't have in that realm. It's a realm that exists for them. It's a realm that exists for real in some people's mind. And when they don't come back, you might see the person, you might be in front of them, but they're in that place and you don't see them because their mind is still there. They're in permanent psychosis, and they're not permafried. Permafried is different. Permafried is a phrase that meth addicts use to tease each other. Isn't true. Permafried means that your system has been fried to a point with the twitching and the quacking and the clucking and the the stuckness that you have when you do meth is something that you, if you know meth, you know people that look like it, and people that twitch, people that quack, people that just stalk, people like storks, and people just like birds. That's meth. That's the nervous system down of meth. That's the nervous system up of meth. That's the nervous system effect of meth. Meth does it to everybody, and meth does it to me, and meth does it to my friends, and meth does it to people I love and care about. And meth doesn't do it to my loved ones because they don't know anything about meth to that degree, as far as I know. And if somebody tells me that they know meth more than I do, and I know meth a lot, and I know meth more than they do, then why would they tell me what they know if they don't think I know anything about meth at all? Meth is simple. Meth is not something that I think is really complicated for people to understand. Once you start shooting it up, it's forever what you love to do. It's not true for everybody. Everybody likes to do their drug a different way. So a lot of people will shoot up and they love it, but then they decide, nah, man, it's too powerful, and I'm not going to be that kind of stupid drug addict. I'm going to be the kind of stupid drug addict that just smokes. And even though you smoke, you don't get that intense rush, intense high, that intense behavioral change, that intense desire for sexual hyperactivity that meth gives you. It's something that people do not speak about. Meth hypersexual activity. It bolts you into a hypersexual state. It revolts you from a hypersexual state. It's not true. It's a state that you love when you know how to do it, and when it affects you right. You can overshoot a shot, and when you overshoot a shot, you're in a place that's no good. Your heart feels tight, your chest feels tight, your head feels tight, and you're scared. You're scared because you feel the wrong. But a lot of times, maybe people I have done meth with, when I've gotten to that state, they're calm and they say, nah, man, you just got to write it out. You'll be okay. They're wrong. I could have died those times that I got into that state. They're wrong because they could have helped me by calming me down, by putting me in the shower, by giving me something to eat, by giving me something just to be warm about and good about and feel good about. People say that having sex on meth is the worst thing to do, but sometimes having sex on meth when somebody, that's not a solution that I want to talk about. When I ask God, is that the solution I want to talk about? God says, it isn't the solution you want to talk about. It's a reality that many people may not know is true. But when you're doing sex on meth, it's consensual sex. It needs to be consensual. And people will say you cannot have consensual sex on meth because you're an altered mind state. And that's not right for you to think that you're having consensual sex with people. If that's not true, then there's people that do drugs every single day that have sex because sex is a major part of drug addiction. People who say that drug addiction is just drugs is not true. Stealing, robbing, getting the next come up, getting the next fix, getting the next drug, getting the next high, getting that little fix, going from place to place, trying to gather up tin cans so you can cash out to get enough for another fix. That's not drug addiction. Drugs is sex and getting high. Sex and getting high. People don't talk about the sex part. Sex is a major part of drug addiction. It is a compulsion of sexual addiction that makes many people hide from what they think is the wrong part of what their existence is. If a person says that they do drugs, but they don't do drugs the way that I do drugs, then I didn't do drugs right. Because I'm the one who stayed home, didn't get high too much, and didn't get high too crazy, and didn't get high with too many crazy women who didn't love to have sex. No. Women love to have sex, and women didn't have a reason to have sex with me, but they didn't have a reason not to have sex with me, too. And if I contribute to any sort of realm of sort of reality of what meth can be, the sex part is a part that's real for many people, and the sex part is a part that's very serious for many people. People do things that they regret on meth. People do things that they regret on drugs, period. But when you do drugs and you have to take responsibility for who you are, you can go ahead and backpedal as much as you want and then blame the game of drugs for what you didn't want to do. And you, the one who didn't have it in you, to say, I didn't want to do it at the time because I felt too much like I wanted to do it. Now I don't want to be the one that blames myself or blames anybody else. But if you really feel that you have to blame somebody, blame them. People don't blame each other because they're like consensual sex, even not high. We knew what we were going to get into before we even got high. And when we get high, the turn on of getting high, or watching each other get high for the purpose of what we were going to do is something that is also very, very real. People don't know how much sex is a part of drugs and drugs is a part of sex. And there's no real way to describe it other than it is like a Caligula, Sodom and Gomorrah type of escapade of exercise of existence that can be that extreme. And it can be that extreme. It can be that devoid of moral turpitude, of moral character, of someone to say, how do you have that kind of sex with people? How can you desire multiple partners in one night? How can you desire to have that kind of sex? How can you desire to be that kind of person and that sexual animal? You're not a sexual animal. You're sexual deviant. Isn't true. You're just doing sex in an excess way. And if I ask God, is this correct for me to say? And God says, it's correct. People who know what God says about sex will say that God does not delve into the sexual appetites of people who do drugs. How is this even possible? If God is everywhere and God exists and God is what you know and God is what you say is your God, then why would God not be with that addict family member who is doing sex the way you have no idea they're doing, or doing their drugs the way they have no idea they're doing? If you don't know why a family member disappears and why they need to disappear and why they go, it may simply be because they want to have sex on drugs. It may not be because they want to get high. They may just want to have sex on drugs. And that's a real thing that people do not discuss and do not talk about. And when I know my experience with that is that I know people that do that, and I know people that have done that, and I know that God tells me that it's a real thing because I did it too. That idea of sex before and then enhanced by drugs, it's an enhancement that is way out of reality, is true. But when God says that love is something that can replicate, duplicate, exceed, and absolutely blow any kind of sex feeling of actual hypersexual sensitivity, hypersexual desire out of the water, love and sex, when with two people that feel the love and the sex and the desire, that love or lust of a kind that is in excess, that God says human beings don't experience yet because they haven't tried it yet, they haven't felt it yet, they haven't known it yet, is the love that faith can bring to those who know faith and know what faith can be when lust and love combined together may be the closest who've experienced that degree of lust. It makes men better, makes men and women better lovers and better fathers and better mothers. Isn't true? It makes them better to each other because they love each other more. Lust is the gateway to a greater trust, and a greater trust of lust is a greater trust that people can have to each other. When lust is something that people have, and lust is something that people use in order to be able to get trust from people, because sex is a doorway into trust. Is true. People have sex will trust each other a little bit quicker. Isn't true. People who trust each other will have sex quicker. It's true. But if you trust someone quicker and you have sex with them and you don't trust them anymore, then the likelihood that you'll have sex with them again is very unlikely. But it isn't true that you won't have sex with them ever again if you turn to love them one day, simply because they're a better person than they used to be, simply because they didn't try to get you, didn't try to sneak you, didn't try to trick you, didn't try to get you or put one over on you so that you could get them to have you any way they wanted, because they were trying to get you with drugs. Because maybe they got you with drugs before, maybe they didn't get you with drugs. Maybe you wanted them because they had drugs, or maybe you wanted them because they were going to get drugs if you and he or you and she got together and were going to hook up. It's a common thing that women do, men do too, but women more. Is what I know is going to be controversial for people to say. Women who have to have drugs in order to have an addiction that is fed are women who are vulnerable to their own addiction. Is true. Women and men are slaves to their addiction. If opiates are what you struggle with, and that's what you struggle with, the worst kind of drug that you could probably struggle with, not probably, that you struggle with, that makes you the slave to the drug. The sickness that you feel from an opiate withdrawal is a sickness that makes you do things you otherwise wouldn't do. And when you need to go ahead and get a fix, you can go ahead and get a fix any way you want. But when a fix is coming, you know it's coming. And you might go ahead and combine it with hooking up with somebody that has a little bit of dough, or has a little bit of time, a little bit of money. Or you have a little bit of extra and you want to share, but you don't want to spend time just getting high and worrying about it. You know, the payoff for getting drugs and then doing it can be enhanced by sexual relations with somebody. It's true. It doesn't always happen all the time. That isn't the one mitigating factor. The one factor in trying to be high with somebody is you don't want to have sex with them just solely because you can have the drugs and do it with them. Sometimes people do. Sometimes people have it, and some people know that's the dude or that's the girl that has it, but they want to hook up. It's true. And so you go in with your eyes wide open. It's true. If you go in with your eyes wide shut, you're a dummy. You shouldn't do that. In a world where there are people that are predators, in a world that there are people that will take advantage of you, is a world that also there exists a lot of good people that will not take advantage of you, that will look after you, look out for you, and they'll still do the same thing to you down the road or before. But in between, they'll still look out for you. A lot of people get lost in the moral conviction of what they may think is the right thing to do, and they may know what it is. And one point of what exists in their life when someone they know is going to make a poor choice, and they're the ones who can help to protect them. But outside of that choice, they're the ones who may have done it before and may do it again down the road. Because the drugs and the desire of having the drugs and to combine the drugs with the sex can be overwhelming. Just getting high by itself is overwhelming, true. So if you got cannabis on your mind, it's a gateway drug to many things. I don't know if it is a gateway drug or not, but that's my description of what it is. Be a meth addict who can do meth but can't do meth anymore, because when I do meth, if I turn into a lunatic, it's a lunatic that I keep inside my home alone, and there's nobody around me when I get high. I've gotten to the point that if I get high, I will not get high with anyone else, because I despise the way that I am, not because I despise me, but because I despise the fact that I'm still getting high. And what it compels me to do is something that I don't want to share with people anymore. If I don't want to hook up with girls anymore, it's because I don't want the opportunity to learn more. Not to learn. I want the opportunity to be able to know more people and get to know more people and build a circle of friends once more, and build a circle of friends that I never really had too, to hook up with girls and hook up with people, and hook up and get what I wanted, drugs and the sex. It's a combination of both that makes sex something that's very compulsive. And it's also when drugs are used. And if you're shy about that, then you're shy about your addiction, and you're shy about discussing what the problem can be, that it compels you to do what your addiction can compel you to do. If you don't want to be an addict, but you don't want to talk about the sexual part, you're going to lose out on being an addict that's free of your addiction. It takes a lot of courage, and it scares me to talk about mine. I'm not comfortable talking about it right now, but I'm doing it anyways because I care about addicts. And I care about addicts that I don't want to die, that are still getting high. And I don't want to die either being an addict who can't give up his drug forever, which I've given up right now. And it feels great to be able to say that I've given it up, because to be sober is a revelation of what life is. And any addiction that I have ever experienced, and I have only experienced it once, people who are addicts will know, when you get sober, stay sober. Staying sober is the hard part. And getting sober is easy. Staying sober is the hard part. People can say that, just get clean and you'll be fine. No, that's the easy part. Staying clean, long term, that's the hard part. That's where the real challenge comes, because one relapse can take you right back to a pretty severe state, and it can be a serious relapse, or it can just be a mild relapse too. People don't have to talk about relapses. Somehow it's going to be a forever condition that you're going to be for sure be back in the boonies of the worst kind of existence. Nah, it doesn't have to be that. Sometimes people fall into it and then search for that because they're like, this is where I'm supposed to go. I'm supposed to go into hell because that's how it was. I got to get my shit all maxed out. No, you don't have to. You can fuck up one time and be light, be done in a day. Hate it and know you made a mistake. Hop on the horse, still have your job, still have your wife, still have your kids, still have your girl, still have your family, still have everything, still have your bank account, and still have your roof over your head, and never have to face homelessness again or the possibility of it. If that's what I say about today, I say about drugs. Drugs suck. Drugs suck. Drugs suck. Don't do them. Don't do them. You're better than that. And you're better than the things. And you're better than the things you do on drugs. Amen.